You're watching Shalom TV, celebrating all things Jewish.
Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
I'm Mark Golub, and I have the chance to sit with an extraordinary artist whom you've met already on Shalom TV if you've seen our series Musica, the extraordinarily talented Noah, and it is wonderful to sit with you in person. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I have wanted to sit with you for a long time, and I've watched what you've done. I've heard your music. I loved what Yigal Hecht did with you on Musica.
I really enjoyed that interview.
But thank you for sitting with me. And we should let the audience know you're here for a specific reason.
That's right.
As we tape this show, tomorrow night you're going to be at Lincoln Center.
Yes, and Rose Hall.
Rose Hall,
which is part of Jazz at Lincoln Center. Beautiful hall, beautiful event. And for the Abraham Fund, we're raising money for the Abraham Fund, which do great work between Arabs and Jews in Israel. And I'm going to be sharing the stage with Mira Awad, who is my colleague and my friend, incredibly talented Palestinian-Israeli singer-songwriter.
How long have you known her?
I've known her for 12 years. Yeah.
And how did you come together, you and Mira?
I was doing an album in the year 2000, actually. I was doing an album, or 2001. It was right after the birth of my first child, for Universal Music. I was doing an international album, and I wanted a collaboration with an Arab artist, with a Palestinian preferably. So I was looking around to see someone that I could resonate with and that would want to do something. And we couldn't really find anything, and Gil Dor, who was my musical director and guitarist, an amazing man, stumbled upon a talk show, an interview with an extraordinary young lady, beautiful and intelligent, and at the end he realized she doesn't look very Arabic, but at the end they said she was Arabic. So he said, he called me and said, I found our lady.
And you reached out to her?
I reached out to her, I called her, and yeah, she was very, very positive. The funniest thing is that he hadn't actually heard her sing on this interview, but he was sure that she could sing. She was playing a part in a musical at the time. And we met, and we had a wonderful chemistry from the first moment. And she came to Holland where I was doing the album. We recorded the song We Can Work It Out, which is a Beatles song with, obviously the lyrics are very relevant. We did a great sort of Middle Eastern funky mix of it. It was very successful. And I invited her as a guest to my concerts all throughout Europe and in many places in the world, the United States as well. Have
you performed with her in the United States before?
Yes, we did one tour before. It was about 2 years ago. We did a small tour which had Washington, D.C. and some other cities, and it was a great pleasure. But we've never been to New York together, and this is the first time actually sharing the stage in this big city. And we're very,
That's
very happy.
wonderful. Well, we'll talk more about the tour coming up. I want to talk first just a little bit about you. What's interesting to many people here, you were born in Israel.
Born in Israel.
But you really spent a great deal of your childhood here in America.
Yes, I did. I was born in Israel to a Yemenite Israeli family, and when I was about a year and a half old, they decided to come to the United States. This was in lieu of my father's education opportunities.
What are your parents' names?
David is my father, and Tamar is my mother. My father is a chemical engineer, and he got a scholarship to the University of Rochester to do his PhD, or it was his master's degree actually, because he did his PhD in Columbia University, New York, which is how we eventually came to New York City. And so first it was Rochester, then New York, the Bronx, New York. I'm a Bronx girl. And I went to religious Jewish schools.
Okay, but wait, I want to make sure everyone understands. There's Bronx and there's Bronx.
That's right.
You grew up in Riverdale.
Riverdale.
Yes.
But I have to say, that's right, Riverdale is like not the Bronx.
No,
but I grew in the Bronxy part of Riverdale, close to Van Cortlandt Park. It was
okay. You weren't on the
We were not
Henry
in
Hudson.
Fieldston.
Okay.
No. My parents were not in that situation.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But you went to SAR.
I went to
the
SAR.
Salanter Akiba Riverdale Academy.
Great school.
Great school.
I loved it.
And I just want you to know what we share.
Yeah.
My daughter went to SAR.
Oh, really?
And was there the same years you were there.
Really?
Although you were ahead of her a couple of years. But she had an extraordinary experience there too.
Yeah.
A
It
good
was a great
education.
school, a
It
unique
was
school.
A great,
So open and giving and values, gave us a lot of values.
So you had nice experiences there?
Oh yeah, and Rabbi Yonah Fuld, who was the principal at the
That's
time.
correct.
There were several
For her
principals, but he was
too.
principal. Rabbi Yonah Fuld, who made Aliyah and lives in Israel. He comes to all my concerts, everywhere. Even in Europe, he's come to see me.
I would go too.
We've stayed close friends. He's
nice.
such a mensch. He's such
So
a
I just want to
beautiful-
remember, do you remember your Siddur play?
Of course. You know who wrote the Siddur play? Do you know who wrote the
No.
Siddur play? Tamar Nini, my mother.
Really?
Of course, Mora Tamar. She was like an iconic teacher in SAR. Mora Tamar. She also wrote the Chumash play. She used to sew all those the felt covers for the. That was all my mom, my mother.
My daughter has that to this day.
I'm sure my mother was your daughter's teacher.
Probably.
Yeah, Mora Tamar. She was.
My daughter's name was Sarit,
Sarit.
and she was the star of the Siddur play.
Okay.
You know, and no, I have very, very warm feelings about what SAR did.
Yeah,
in terms of
and it's
for
grown
kids at the time.
beautifully.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, so you were there at SAR,
Uh-huh.
and then my recollection from reading about you is you were in America till you were about 17.
Yeah, I went to Ramaz until I finished my sophomore year.
In New York City,
In New York
Manhattan.
City, yes. Academically an excellent school, that I have to say. I left Ramaz, actually I left the United States because I was on a summer vacation in Israel, and I met a man, I would say, because he's probably a bit older than I was. He was 21, and I was 15 at the time, 16. And I really fell in love with him totally. And I
Has this love
decided
stayed
that
in your life?
yes, that's my husband.
Is that lovely? His
It's my
name?
first love. And Asher Barak, Dr. Asher Barak.
He's now a doctor.
He's a pediatrician. We have 3 children. Yeah, we're very
Yes.
blessed.
You know, you look much too young to be a mommy of 3
You're
children.
very sweet,
No,
but
no.
yeah. Well.
And where do you live in Israel?
I live in Shfaim, which is where that interview was shot, in my backyard, very close to a kibbutz, Kibbutz Shfaim. It's a wonderful kibbutz. It's about 15 minutes north of Tel Aviv, and it's right on the beach.
You know, for some reason I misunderstood. Your parents did not return with you when you were
Not
7.
with me. They returned about 12 years after me.
Okay. Was it hard for you to go back to Israel and with a man whom you were now in love with, but you
Yeah.
still were leaving your mother and father?
I was leaving it was crazy what I did actually, and the fact that my parents let me do that. You know, I really I tip my hat to these people. They were so, they really they trusted me, and they were confident that I would make it, and I wanted it so badly. And also, I wasn't just going all by myself. I went to a boarding school in Jerusalem, so I was studying in this. I had this very closed environment. An aunt was my legal guardian, and the Sochnut actually helped me quite a lot. I was at Katin Choser, the Jewish agency, and so I had a framework, a structure. It was a very good school, Boyer School in Jerusalem. It was a school for talented children, and I was fortunately good at school, so I managed to get in. And Asher was studying medicine at the time in Jerusalem, so we were both in Jerusalem.
And then how long were you there before you got married?
Well, first there was the 2 years of high school. Then I went to the army. I was in the army for 2 years.
And you were a performer in the army?
I was a performer. I was lucky to get accepted to the Lahakat Tzvait,
Yes,
the
it's a hard thing to do.
It is, the military entertainment unit, where I learned a lot. It was amazing. Wow, field study for being for what I'm doing today. And
I'm sorry, are you talking about life or are you talking about music?
Music. Being in the army and being a musician in the army gave me great training for what I'm doing today, for being a
singer.
As a singer, and in general. It just really gets you in focus. From you learn things, you experience things that children, for example, in the United States or in other countries in the world would never have the opportunity, for good and bad. You know, I'm not like selling the army thing. I would also be happy to go to do a trip in Australia and New Zealand at the time, or just start school earlier. But if that's our reality, I try to make the best of it. And when I finished my military service, I was considering coming back to New York actually, because I wanted to study at Juilliard. But
I was sure you were going to be a Juilliard kid.
But that would have meant leaving my boyfriend, and I was adamant about marrying him. This was my man. So I found a school in Israel called the Rimon School of Israel. And then I was rewarded for my determination and for my loyalty to my husband. And I met my musical husband, the man who became my musical husband. He was my teacher in the Rimon School of Music, or the academic director, and one of the founders of the school, one of the most well-respected musicians in Israel, Gil Dor. He was my professor. And
we should, just for
we'll talk about him
journalistic
maybe.
honesty,
Yeah.
we should say Gil is here in this room.
He's here in this room.
And he's
not sitting with us.
a lovely man.
He's an amazing man.
He's an amazing man.
I'm so lucky, to have run into him.
You met him at the school?
Yeah, he was my
teacher. So you've been with him for a long time.
22 years. Yeah, 22 years. We've just celebrated last month. from the day of our first concert, which was February 8th. And yeah, it was amazing. He gave me the opportunity. The school was arranging, the school was asked to do a spot in a festival, in a Tel Aviv festival, where there would be a teacher-student collaboration of some sort. And since it was just the beginning of the academic year, the school hadn't really organized all the ensembles or the bands, the big bands. They weren't really ready. So they just asked Gil to do something, to find some students and do a gig. And he approached me. And I was so fortunate for that opportunity.
What gig did you do? What did you do?
Guitar and voice, just guitar and voice. And
were you just the voice? You do play percussion, don't you?
I play percussion. I play a whole bunch of instruments.
What do you play?
I play guitar and piano and percussion.
Okay.
Mediocre guitar and piano.
Yeah.
But pretty good percussion at this point, yeah. But it took me time. I learned de facto. I just learned by. I'm a sort of autodidact type. I teach myself things.
So for this presentation you did with Gil, he did the guitar and you did the voice.
Yeah, it was just voice and guitar,
okay.
And it was partly covers and a few jazz standards and some of my original songs.
When did you start writing?
At a very young age.
Tell me.
I think I wrote my first poem when I was 7. Wow. Yeah, and then I was writing all the school, poetry for every event, every birthday, every holiday, everything. And I was always singing. I was singing in the school choir, the SAR choir. And Avshalom Katz, which was the music teacher, who was
exceptional.
Exceptional, and I'm still in touch with him today. He's in Israel now.
Are you really?
Yeah, I invite him to see my shows, and I'm still in touch. And he had an incredible impact on my life. This man.
Did you do his Bereshit?
What?
Bereshit.
What a beautiful song.
I just sang with Noah.
וחושך על פני תהום, וחושך על פני תהום, וחושך על פני תהום, וחושך על פני תהום. No, he's such a talented man, and he gave me so much. A lovely person, and I think I told him just a few weeks ago when we met that the fact that he would always ask my opinion. He said, Achinoam, what do you think about that? Do you like that song? Should I teach it to the Ada Pishke? It gave me so much credit. I think it changed my whole perception of myself.
It's a totally different way of doing Jewish education,
yes,
you understand?
Totally.
Give him credit.
I do. I give him credit to this day. I always state that he had a huge impact on my life. It was amazing. And Rabbi Fool, too. These are people who really opened my mind. Because I came from a non-religious family, and we were not religious at home. And here I was in a religious school, and that's tough for a child to deal with.
They had the perspective of Torah Sinai.
Yeah.
And they were very observant. Mm-hmm. But they gave you freedom.
Yes, totally.
I give them credit.
Yes, totally. I mean, they were open. The school always was open and liberal, and they were focusing on values, on values beyond everything.
Okay, so you're writing lyrics, you're writing poetry.
Yeah.
Did you write melody?
Oh yes, I started writing songs by 8, 9, 10. I already had songs, and then at the age of 12, Shalom Katz organized a professional recording for me. He believed that I would be a star, and he took me to his friends in New York in a studio just not far from here with some musicians, and yeah, I got to be in a real studio at the age of 12. And record 6 of my own songs. Yeah, I still have that recording. I had a song about a cockroach. Cockroach comes to New York City. Suitcase in his hand.
So they were in English?
Yeah, in English. I wrote in English. Yeah, I wrote in English. English, I love the English language. I started reading and writing very, very young. I've read I gobbled up books as a child, I love English. Poetry and everything. I also speak, love Hebrew. I love words. I'm just a word person.
So you write now in both languages?
Yes, I write in both. Okay. But the lyrics mostly in English.
Okay.
I've put a lot of Hebrew poetry to music. Yeah, and with Gil, it's been great because Gil is so Gil Dora. We're talking about Gil Dora. He's so flexible and so versatile. And at some point, I started, coming up with melodies. He would write lyrics too. In fact, a few years ago, we did something beautiful. We did after many years. This is taking us many years down the line, but we've already become very successful in Europe and especially in Italy. And I did a whole project of Neapolitan songs, which are just breathtaking songs. And we decided we wanted to release it in Israel. And we started translating these songs to Hebrew because they sound beautiful in Hebrew. And the translation was done by Gil, another talent. He did it beautifully, and we released an album called Napoli Tel Aviv. It did really well in Israel.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, Napoli.
All right, come back for one more moment. When you start writing, and you obviously have some talent, are your parents encouraging of you?
Oh yeah, my parents were very encouraging. They drove me to the piano lessons and to the ballet lessons and to the this and to the that. Oh, I have amazing parents. They're such great people. To this day, they come to all my shows and they follow. And my sister too. My sister's also a musician, and
younger or older?
She's younger. She's much younger. She's 12 years younger. She's a more, I would say, avant-garde kind of musician. She lives in Los Angeles, as does my brother. And you know, they're there, and this is music that is more difficult for them to understand, but they're there and they support and they go to all the shows and they bring all their friends and they're there with they're just amazing people. To all of us, they've been great
You're
parents.
very blessed and lucky.
Oh yes, yeah, I've been very blessed.
That is wonderful.
And today with my 3 kids, you think I could do any of this career stuff without my parents? They
help you.
Of course, my mom, with all the young babies, when I've had babies, I've gone on tour with the baby because I've nursed them for a long time. I believed in that.
Good for you.
And my mother would go with me everywhere. And in the summer tours, where the summer festivals, there are lots of concerts. I take all 3 kids with both parents, my mom and my dad. They're just great.
Your children's names and ages?
Ayeli is 11, and Enea is 10. No, not 10. Enea is going to be 8 in August. And little Yam, she's 2 years old.
Do you see in them any musical ability?
I do. But my philosophy is that music is a privilege, not anything else. So if you want to be a musician, you have all the music around. You know, come take it. I have a studio in my house. The instruments are there. Musicians come in and out all the time. So if their destiny is music, they'll find it. I don't push them in any way. You know, I don't make them practice. You don't want to play. Don't play. We're stopping with that. Do something else.
Were you made to practice?
Nobody made me practice.
You wanted to?
I didn't. I did not practice. I was really bad with that. I stopped piano lessons and I stopped, you know, I didn't want to. I was interested. I'm more of a free spirit and an autodidact. I teach myself what I'm interested in. I'm not good at, you know, I left music school after a year. Once I met Gil, I said, okay, I got what I needed from here. Actually, I said it in a concert a few days ago that I found Gil, he's my teacher. And then I just stayed in school for 22 years.
With him?
With him. But our we had a very unique classroom. It was life was our classroom. And I expanded the walls to include so many people and countries and places. It's been fascinating.
At some point, you begin to be successful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can talk about it at all, but I would be curious to know, it's in a different world. You're doing this out of the state of Israel. You're not doing it out of LA or New York.
Yeah.
What is it like as you begin to experience the success? Is it exhilarating? Are you aware of it? Does it change you?
I'll tell you.
Do you become somewhat different?
It's a good question, yeah, and it's a good question. First of all, it's funny to say that you know, I was here in New York in the middle of the music industry and all the, you know, everything's going on here. But my success came actually when I left New York and I went to Israel, which is this tiny little country in the Middle East, and that's where I met Gildor, and Gildor introduced me to Pat Metheny. And Pat Metheny was my big break. Pat Metheny was an amazing Grammy Award-winning guitarist and composer, lives here in New York. He was the one that actually, Gil sent me to him. I was on a vacation here visiting my parents in New York. We met, he loved my songs. He brought me to David Geffen, Geffen Records.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I got my big break. I had an album on Geffen Records at the age of 21 already, 22. Produced by Pat Metheny, which were these 2 amazing names.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I was really, really fortunate. And this came only because I followed my heart. I wrote a song about that one. I followed my heart all the time. That's what I do. I'm very keen on that. I'm very in tune with my heart. It's a heart and head situation, but the heart is the major player. So yeah, I started the Universal, the album for Geffen Records was very well accepted. We started touring, blah, 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 and we had all kinds of wonderful opportunities. By nature, I do not dwell on success whatsoever. I'm very focused on what I have to do. I work. I get up, I do my thing. I work, and I'm very into what I do, and I love it, and I'm passionate about it. I'm dedicated to it. I don't deal with the whole success thing at all. It's just not on my agenda. I don't think about being famous or not famous. I think the people who dwell on that and live with that are really miserable. I mean, they're miserable. They have to be miserable. Because what happens if you're not in the spotlight for a moment? If your ego or if your life depends on it, then you're in sorry shape. So I once said that to survive an international career, any kind of career, you need enough confidence, self-confidence to not believe what is written about you, and enough modesty to not believe what is written about you.
At the same time, you did enjoy it.
Yeah, because I love music. I just love music. I mean, I love music. It's just the reason I live.
Do you love the audience? Do you love performing, I should say?
I love performing, yes, I absolutely love performing. But I was just talking to Pat about this, to Pat Metheny, which is really one of our great role models and such an inspiring human being. That we don't really do it for the audience. That's the truth. I mean, they're there, and we're happy that they enjoy it, and we do try to reach out to them in all kinds of ways, but we're performing for ourselves. We just love music. We're in the temple of
that's wonderful to hear.
But you know, I'll say it even more. We're in the temple of the God of music. Really humbly in the temple of the God of music. Really, we worship Him, not the God of success, not the God of money, not the God of fame. It's the God of music. We're trying to do good service to this amazing gift that we received called music.
Okay. Your given name is Achinoam Nini. Why Noah?
Well, nobody can say Achinoam Nini except for you. I mean, you walk down the New York street. I remember as a child, okay, I'd go out and where there were still payphones, a prehistoric thing. I'm that old. There were payphones, and I would go with my friends, you know, on the weekends to the village or something. And I need to call my mother, and I tried to make a collect phone call because, of course, I didn't have money. Try to make a collect phone call with a name like Achinoam.
Impossible.
What'd you say your name was? Achinoam. Silence. And it's raining and it's cold. Silence on the other side of the line. Can you spell that? A-C-H-I-N-O. And then she still can't say it, and it's like an hour. Okay, you know, Achinoam is not, you can't
So where does Noah come from?
Noah, on the other hand, is a great name. First of all, Noah is the heart of Achinoam.
Yes.
So if you say Achinoam, so you just take Noah, scoop it out of Achinoam. And Noah Achinoam is also a biblical name. She was Achinoam Israelit, who was King David's first wife. She's a more minor character, but in Divrei Hayamim there are a lot of nice things written about her. But Noah, on the other hand, she's an important biblical character. She was one of 14 daughters of Tzlofchad, Bnot Tzlofchad. And when their father passed away, this time of Moses going through the desert, he was a very wealthy man. He had a lot of property. It was obvious that the property would be transferred to the tribe since there were no men. But then Noah came to Moses and said, well, we're 14 able-bodied women. We can manage it. And I'm making a long story short, he agreed.
Bo, do you remember what Moses said?
No, not exactly.
This is terrific.
Tell me.
Bo, you picked such a wonderful story for you. Moses says, the daughters come to him and say, we think we should inherit.
Yeah, right.
Should we?
Yeah.
And Moses doesn't know the answer.
Oh.
And Moses has to go to God.
Uh-huh.
And God says, they're right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is,
that's nice.
Even the obvious question is, why didn't Moses know?
Yeah.
I mean, he'd gotten the Torah, right?
Right.
And from this, we learn a very important Jewish principle.
Yeah.
The Torah is never ending.
Yeah.
And that it's not all given at one point in time, that
Right.
over time one learns more and
More
more
and
and
more
more.
and more.
And even
Yes.
Moses had to learn, and it's almost like somebody said to God, here's a question you might not have thought of.
Yeah. Beautiful.
But the answer was yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Right on.
And so for you, that's
So for me, that's great. I love
who
that.
you are.
I love that. I love that.
Good for you.
Yeah. And that's why I took the name, and I tell that story all over the world.
I'm very glad. All right. So let's talk now about that aspect of you.
Mm.
You're an accomplished musician and a great performer, but you also want to make a statement about who you are and what life is and what you hope the state of Israel is.
Yeah,
and
that's
there are many people in your position, many who both do and don't.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of those who wants to use the platform to make a statement as well.
Yeah.
And you and I spoke off camera about David Broza,
Right.
who we've met with many times, and who also has very strong things to say about where he hopes the future, not only simply the state of Israel and the Jewish world, but the world as a whole will go.
Will be, yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask where that comes from you. There's certain activism about you, and a certain perspective you bring to the world. The fact that you perform with Mira is a statement about what you hope for your region, for the Israeli-Palestinian relationship to be, right?
Yes.
So first of all, where does that come from in you?
Well, to begin with, I never planned it. I started traveling around the world, and I realized that, I was in every interview that I did, I was asked 2 questions about music and 20 questions about Israel. And there was just nothing I could do about it. I became despite myself, I became a sort of ambassador. Very quickly, I realized that this was an opportunity, and that since I had, I was always very keen on, I'd say, I cannot see injustice without jumping up and doing something about it. And so I started learning. I actually started learning the history. I didn't know it at all. And this is a little bit of a sad thing, because we're not really given enough of a perspective in our respective education systems. If it's the Jewish education, if it's the Palestinian education, we're given a little bit of a closed, I knew nothing about the Palestinian. I didn't even know how they came to be. What are these people doing here? And what claim do they have at all? We're the Jews, it's ours. That's the way I grew up. And I think that almost every nation grows up with that kind of, pointing inwards rather than looking outwards, because especially when you're a child, there's no time for that, or I guess that's what the education system thinks. And so as an adult, I started learning more and really broadening my lens. I opened up my zoom, and I realized how complex our situation is, but also how simple. Complex and simple at the same time. Simple in the fact that at the end we're just people, we're just human beings. I'll quote Pat Metheny, and that he said that everyone on the entire planet should go to the planetarium once a week. Once a week, just sit there and look at what's going on up there. No, it's a little tiny planet that we are. What's the deal here? I mean, really, it's a cliche, but we're really all the same. At the end, we're people. We want the same things. We have the same dreams. We just want to survive. We want to have children. We want to see them grow and prosper. And there's no reason that we can't work that out. We just have to work it out. And we have to put our history, especially the immediate history, which seems so insignificant when you start really reading history, and just put it aside. Learn from it, yes. Take something from it, but put it aside and move on. And my motto is always the one sentence that I learned in school, and that is "V'ahavta l'recha kamocha." If I could write one sentence that I believe in, that I live my life according to, it's love your brother as you love yourself, and every brother. I don't limit brother to anything. Brother is a brother. It's another human being. You know that it's Gildor enlightened me as to the fact that re'echa comes from the word rea. Rea as in mir'eh. Mir'eh in Hebrew means the field in which you, what's the word in English? I'm losing my English. Cows graze. Mir'eh, the grazing field. The field in which you graze is your mir'eh. The people who graze with you are your re'im, the people around you. And that's anyone. That's any old animal or person or that needs to survive, that's looking for food and is around you. Your re'echa. We are all on this one grazing field called planet Earth. We are all together and have to look out for each other.
That's lovely. Does Mira understand that perspective?
Oh yes, Mira Awad is an extremely deep and intelligent person. She in herself is as I am, and this is nice about the two of us. And you look at me, first of all, I look Arabic. If you didn't know me, you'd think I was Arabic because of my Yemenite roots. Mira's mother is from Bulgaria and her father is Palestinian. She looks totally Jewish. I mean, she's got nice fair skin and green eyes and sort of blondish hair, but she's Arabic. So I'm Jewish, she's Arabic. We mix things. It just like this. It's like kneading your perspectives and opening your views. Trying really forces you to look at things differently. She speaks perfect English. She's fluent, of course, also in Arabic and Hebrew. We sing in those three languages together. The pinnacle of our collaboration, by the way, was representing Israel in 2009 Eurovision Song Contest.
When you say, but you represented Israel,
we represented
does that
Israel.
mean Israel gave you some kind of hechsher here?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Israel approached me to represent Israel at that being an international star and blah blah blah, and I told them, listen, the Eurovision is a pop music. I'm not interested in pop music per se. I wouldn't find myself there artistically, but it's a huge media platform. I mean, there's media there from all hundreds of millions of people watch it, and as a media platform, it's very interesting. But I'll only go if I can take Mira Awad together with me, and you let us write our own song, no dictates, and it'll be in 3 languages. And the song, which I'm very proud of, I actually wrote it and Mira translated parts of it to Arabic and Gil to Hebrew, and we did it all together, is called There Must Be Another Way. And it's a very succinct way of putting it. Not that we exactly know what that way is, we have ideas, but what's for sure is there must be another way.
There must be another way. There must be another way.
It's become a very popular song.
Yeah, it's become well loved all over, and we've performed it hundreds of times. And the experience in Eurovision was amazing. We didn't win the contest, obviously, but we received letters from hundreds of thousands of people from around the world, especially from the Arab world, by the way.
Really?
Oh yeah, we had interviews on Al Jazeera, and we had interviews on BBC Iran. You cannot imagine. And we were on websites all over the Arab world, and there were so many young people out there which resonated, young Arab people. By the way, it was those same people that you saw later in the streets in the Arab Spring. It's that same age group, that same people who just want to see things differently. They just don't want the old regime anymore. They're out there and they're willing to sacrifice a lot for
Okay,
it.
I want to put the political leadership aside.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you about the political leadership.
Sure.
I'm asking you about your experience
Mm-hmm.
of the Israeli and the Palestinian. Just
Yeah.
the average
Yeah.
Ish and Isha.
Isha and Isha.
Okay. Do you find there reason for hope that there will be in time the ability for us to live together in a way of mutual respect, even where we help each other be more human?
Look, Mark, my answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. There is no doubt that we can live together. I think that it's the responsibility of every population to push their leaders to go in that direction. We just absolutely have to. You know, sometimes it makes me very, very sad when friends of mine, Israeli friends of mine, intelligent people and liberal people say, but there's nobody to make peace with on the other side. That's a mind-boggling, statement. How do you know? Do you know all of them that you know that there's nobody out there? And do they know you? We don't. First of all, we don't know each other. There's an incredible lack of information. There's a policy, I think, of keeping that fear going, because fear that keeps us separate, that builds the walls, that's good for business in many ways for some people. And maybe they have an interest, for the extremists, all the extremists. For them, it's very good for business to have more fear, less information, more suspicion. It's up to us sane people, just want to live a life, to break those walls of fear, to reach out to each other, to learn about each other, to make our voices heard as much as possible, and that's what I'm trying to do in my own way.
Music can do that.
Music can do that. It can do that, but it's got to be part of a movement. And I think what annoys me is that I see people, letting themselves off the hook. They say, there's nothing to be done. Let's just sit back and let things happen. Anyway, the world's going to Armageddon or whatever. And I say, no. But why are you saying that? I always remember that sentence written on on the wall in Yad Vashem, and I can't remember who said it exactly, is for a terrible tragedy to occur, it is not.
All it is for people to do
exactly.
nothing. Good
it's
people
not
do
for the
nothing.
bad people to do something, but for the good people to do nothing. And I think that that's so important to remember all the time. If you're a person, if you have the ability, if you're not like starving to death and need to scrap out your food, if you've even got a decent life and you do something which can make an impact on even just one other person, then you need to be doing that, because otherwise nobody's going to do it for you. And I really believe in that, and that's why I do it. And Mira as well, we share the same view.
Are you passionate as well about the fact that there should be a Jewish state of Israel?
Look, the state of Israel is my home. I love the state of Israel. I'd like the state of Israel to be a liberal democracy for all its citizens, with a special place for the Jewish people. How exactly to do that? It's not easy. But I think the fact that we are the Jewish state and everybody else is underneath that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. For me, those are not the Jewish principles that I believe in, the humanistic principles that I believe in. I think that Israel still has a way to go and to really decide what kind of country we want to be. By the way, that's what we're encountering now. And again, Gildor, which is such a wise man, has put it in this way, that for years we were dealing with bringing Aliyah,
Yes.
we were surviving, we were doing these things which were critical. Okay, now we've gotten most of the,
Correct.
the people, there. We've built a country. It was,
Correct.
he said, it's Aliyah, it's building and defense. We built the country, our country is, it's a jewel. Really it is, it's a jewel of a place. And we've brought the Aliyah, and we've gotten our security situation pretty down pat. Now what? Now we have to deal with the really important issues. What kind of country do we want to be? What is the nature of our land? And that's why you see all these things with Hadarat Nashim, with the women, you probably are aware of all the issues we've had recently with that, and different things and different groups coming up, and it's bubbling, it's like a lava, it's like a cauldron of emotions and ideas. And I'm hopeful that of all of that will emerge The original, by the way, Zionist concept, the original Zionist country, Herzl, was supposed to be a mofet la'amim. It was supposed to be a country that would give an example to the entire world of how a state can be formed, a liberal, open-minded state where education and where culture are at the top of the social agenda, all these things. I feel a lot of that is out of focus right now. It's been lost to us, and we need to get it back. We need to pull it back.
Does your husband share your view?
Yes, my husband does.
Okay, and would you say that it also reflects the community in which you live? What I mean, I don't mean geographic. I mean in terms of the people that you associate with and the people you respect and regard. In essence, this is a movement you're part of as a community.
It does, and my problem with my own community is that we're just not vocal enough. We're not, as I said, we're not making ourselves heard. Our voices right now we're a little bit in a state of shock, I think, when we see what's going on around us, and or busy with our high-tech jobs, or busy writing books and going on tour and raising children. I don't know, we're busy. It always seems to me that the extremists have a lot of time on their hands. How do they have all that time? Really, all the extremists, they have time for talkbacks, they have time for demonstrations. What do they don't have jobs? We're all of us on the, the other, we don't know. What can I say? It's depressing, but it's got to change.
Okay. I have a unique perspective here, just by luck. And I've told you before, I do things in the theatrical world as well. And I know many, many people here in America who are big name stars, Jewish and non-Jewish. Many people who are Jewish who make it here, sometimes for good reasons and sometimes for different reasons. I even shouldn't talk about good and bad. They have less than a Jewish identity. And in part, and this is to be non-judgmental, artists become part of the world. What I mean by that is, if you have a certain degree of success, and all of a sudden, your stage is no longer your town or your city, and sometimes it isn't even your country. You become a person of the world. Very often, American Jews who are very successful, while they know they're Jewish, Jewishness is not at the core of where they are. And that, again, it's hard. People may hear me say this and think I'm being critical. I'm being descriptive. They can still be there are some people I adore, and they just don't share the Jewishness that I share.
Right.
But they are Jews, and they know they're Jews.
Yeah.
But sometimes, even in America, and again, you lived here for a while, so you'll know what I'm saying.
Oh, yes, I know very well.
There are stars who do not want to do anything of a specific nature because they don't, some specific Jewish nature, they don't want to be pigeonholed as Jews. Okay, so
I have several things to tell you about that.
Okay,
I have several things to tell you. Okay.
I wonder if that's true for the Israeli star as well. You are an example of someone who is like that in the Israeli scene, like the stars who are here from the American scene. Do you see yourself more as a artist of the world than you do an Israeli Jewish singer?
Okay, I have several things to tell you, and I'll try to remember all of them, okay? The first thing is referring to what you said about the Jewishness of people here, or how Jewish they want to be considered. I admire the American Jewry for creating all the myriad variations of Judaism that exist here. And it's just so beautiful. You can be a Jew in so many different ways in America, and I think that that's amazing. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist in Israel.
That's true.
And when I made the transition from SAR and all that to Israel, I was shocked. And I went away. I left a lot of my Judaism. I actually created my own variation of Judaism. By the way, in our home we have Kiddush and everything, Kiddush Teimani, Kiddush Ashkenazi. And we do all of that because it's beautiful. It's my culture. I love it. But I didn't want to go with the dogmas and with the hard way that Judaism is approached by the interrelation between church and state, or synagogue and state in Israel, which in my opinion, personal opinion, is a problem, hurting both sides. So first of all, I admire that. I think the question of what Jewishness is fascinating. I mean, I'm sure there have been many PhDs written about it, and you know, it's amazing. What is this thing that makes you Jewish? But it's a thing. We can always put our finger on it. It's a something, and that you know, Gil once said. I keep quoting him all the time because I spend so much time with him, and he has a lot of beautiful things to say, that the word Yehudi comes from the word head, which means echo. So there's something about a Yehudi which is always looking for resonance, an echo, a resonance. He's looking for things he throws ideas out and he come back to him and he uses ideas and he picks them up and he grows with them. This whole thing with ideas, with words, with concepts is so rich with the Yehudim. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, which is not related to land or to anything. It's not tangible at all. It's something that exists all in your heart and your head. And that makes a Yehudi. He has a world that is created with ideas, words, and resonance. And in that sense, I'm sure that all of the stars and the performers, like you say, deep in their heart, they understand that there is a Yehudi thing in them, which gives them that spark. And that's all, and that's enough. We'll suffice with that. A friend told me that in France, there are many non-Jewish performers or actors which say they're Jewish even though they're not. Because in France, in the entertainment industry in France, it's become, wow, if you're Jewish, that gives you like 20 more points because you must be clever or intelligent or talented. I told him, are you kidding me? He said, no, and he himself is not a Jew. He said, you can't imagine the amount of people who say they're Jews and they're not. I thought it was very entertaining and your audience would like to hear that. Now back to me. We're now back to me. I present myself as an Israeli. I'm a Jewish Israeli. I never try to hide that in any way. I would rather put myself right up front and say I'm Israeli, and I will work to bring Israel, my beloved Israel, to the place where I can really, really, really be proud of it. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to run away from it. I want to move to Australia. I want to stay in Israel. I served my 2 years army. I raised my children in Israel. I love the country. But I'm here to represent all the people in Israel who want to live in peace, who want an open country, a liberal country, a flourishing country. We don't want the fear and paranoia anymore. We just don't want it. And that's right. There were times in Jewish history where we were persecuted. We should have been taking care of ourselves better than what eventually happened. We didn't realize what was coming upon us. We know World War II, the Holocaust, etc. Times are different now. We said never again. That's great. But now what? Never again. We're not going to be victims. We've taken care, as I said, we've built. We have our fortress now. Now what? What do we want to do? And I remember, the sentence, Or LaGoyim. We want to be Or LaGoyim, want to be a light for the world. Let's create that light. And I'm into creating that light. And I'd much rather do that as an Israeli, not hiding behind, the skirts of my Americanness or my Yemenite, whatever. I have all kinds of things fans that I can use. I don't want to use them. I'm an Israeli Jew, and here I am showing you that there must be another way.
That is exquisite.
Thank you.
I want to now pick up. You're an Israeli Jew.
Yes.
And you grew up with an American pluralistic view of Judaism,
yes,
which you appreciate. And I love the way you said it. And I don't think you can necessarily import American Jewish pluralism to Israel.
It's a problem.
But there's no question that Israel should become more open to the variety of ways in which even our Jewish tradition expresses Jewishness. Okay. But for me, and I will now talk for me, and then I want to hear what you have to say. I want there to be a place on this earth that is created as a Jewish haven, and more than a haven, because haven has the overtone of the victim again. And I want to go beyond victim. I want this to be true even if there was never one iota of Jewish persecution in history or the future. I want there to be a place that the Jewish people can create a society, a living, breathing organism of a country, which will be intrinsically for the Jews, but it must be absolutely open to any other human being who wants to live in this social experiment that was at Or LaGoyim, with 100% every right, advantage, gift of civilization that any Jew would have. I do not want there to be a second-class Arab citizen. I don't want there to be a second-class any citizen. But I want it to be Jewish. And by that I mean, I do not want to apologize for Hatikva mentioning the Nefesh Yehudi. I don't want to apologize for the fact that the national holidays will be holidays that are on the Jewish calendar. I don't want to apologize for the fact that Hebrew will be at least one of the official languages of the Jewish state. And I want everybody to understand it is a, quote, Jewish state. It is not a Middle Eastern state in which Jews live as equal citizens to everybody else. It will be a Jewish state, which is then open to anyone who wants to live in the Jewish state as a full participant in freedom. Now, I want to know whether my articulation is one that makes you uncomfortable in any area.
Well, in my,
Be gentle with me.
you know, I know I'm, you know, you're really challenging me here because it's not, the answer is not clear, you know, because
That's very honest of you.
it really isn't clear.
You're struggling with
I'm
it.
struggling with it. I must tell you, more than, for example, people who did not grow up with some kind of a Jewish education or were not, my very secular friends, for them it's just like not, it's a non-issue. Like, you know, why is that important, they tell me? Why is that important to have a place like that? Why do we need that? I mean, why can't we just have a great country like Australia, but it happens to be called Israel? Why? And I understand, and I wish that I knew exactly how that could be done. For me, right now, there's only one thing that I've heard that seems to me to be some kind of a viable solution. First of all, personally, I'm into separation of church and state in Israel. I really think that the fact that they are interrelated is hurting Judaism and is hurting our ability to govern the state of Israel in a
Yes,
true,
by the way,
in
I
truly
don't talk
democracy.
to any Israeli who does not agree with you. Every
So
Israeli
why
I
is it
talk
not
to-
done? I don't understand. Why is it not done?
Because there's a certain kind of political
Okay, well, that's a big problem.
stranglehold.
That's a big problem.
Yes.
Big problem. Religion and politics, bichlal, big problem also. All
It's
these religious
horrible.
parties. What is this?
Yes.
It's really dirtying the hands of the beautiful thing that religion is supposed to be, in my opinion.
Yes. That does not mean that I don't want
I
Judaism to be
understand.
central.
No, I'm just
But
saying-
it should
I'm
not
saying it.
be political.
It should not be political. It should not be forced on anyone.
Yes.
You know what? It should be something that you really want to be part of. You've got to make it something that you want to be part of. My parents here in America, as I say, it's not religious home at all, but they wanted to be part of the shul. We went to shul. We were part of the Jewish community.
Because you wanted to.
They couldn't
Not 'cause you
believe.
thought you had to
They
be.
said, "What a beautiful thing these people have built here." They were surprised. You know, the Jewish community, all the different after-school activities and the chagim and the trips, and it was a beautiful thing. And I don't know. Of course, it has to do with the fact that here there are different options for identity. You don't have to necessarily be Jewish. You choose to be Jewish, and the people who would like you to embrace it make it a very attractive place for you to be. Whereas in Israel, it's automatic. You're Jewish. You're Jewish because you live in Israel. It's a thing you take for granted. And then you have a greater challenge, and that challenge has not been met yet in Israel. That's one thing. A friend of mine said that one interesting solution for Israel could be, rather than focusing on the Jewish state, focusing on the Hebrew state. Now, what he means by that, and again, I'm quoting Gildor, he's a smart guy. The Hebrew state, the Hebrew language, has in it everything of our beautiful Jewish culture. It has the wisdom of the Kabbalah and of the Zohar and of the secrets and everything. It has the geometria, it has the poetry, it has the philosophy, it has the literature, it has the Tanakh. The Hebrew language is our greatest asset, one of our greatest assets as a people. And if we were to focus on the Hebrew state and not on the Jewish state, of course, again, like I say, I don't have all the answers. The positioning of the Jewish people within this is something that needs to be worked out exactly. I don't know exactly what it is without ostracizing the others. Because anyway, and we've thought about this so many times, any way you go, when you call it a Jewish state and you give this, you're making the other people class B, C, or D. You're doing that. If you're not Jewish in the Jewish state, then what are you? Whereas if you come to a Hebrew state, you speak the Hebrew language, you learn the Hebrew literature, you are involved with this beautiful culture, then it can be inclusive, and of course Judaism has a great part in it. It can be inclusive, but not ostracizing. This is something that I think that needs to be deeply considered. What can I tell you? I think that ideally for me,
it is a very hard
it's a hard
issue.
question, and there's no clear answer to it. My father says, the Jews don't need a state. when we're sitting on the
Your
Friday.
father says
My
this?
father says it. No, because he likes to argue. My father's a big philosopher. The Jews don't need a state. I tell you, why are you saying that, Dad? He says, because they don't need it. They're not good at running it. You know, they're great at being in other places. Look how successful they are everywhere. They're creating communities within other communities. They're great. But when they have to run their own state, they have a problem. To a certain degree, yes. But right now, we have a big problem.
You talked about it as a jewel.
It is a jewel. It's beautiful.
So does your father see it?
He sees, but what I'm saying, what my father means is that the Jews, because they're such thinkers and philosophers and movers and goers, they're not good at, we don't have a pyramid in Israel. You know what I mean? That's why we're having so many problems. We don't have a pyramid. We have a big end of the pyramid. We don't have all that. We don't have all those people just doing their jobs. Everyone is a philosopher, a doctor, everyone is a medical student, everyone is a this and this. And then we have to import these and import those and import. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Israel is an enigma. I mean, it's a delightful enigma. And I wish that it would, I want the end to be a good one. It has to have a happy end.
Okay. Well, we're not going to solve it right now.
Yeah, we're not. It's a long conversation.
Right, and this is the first time we've had a chance to talk together.
Yeah.
So the next time we talk, we'll continue,
Sure,
and maybe we'll continue
I would
it
be happy to.
sometimes off camera.
Yeah.
You say a lot of things that intrigue me. I would love to talk to Gil. I don't agree about the Hebrew state.
Yeah, I could see you being skeptical
I'm
right
sorry.
there. I know most people
right,
don't.
It's not what we mean. And by the way, the Talmud is not in Hebrew.
It's not. Yeah, I know. It's
the
an
Talmud is
Aramaic.
probably the great.
It's a great book.
It is, and the Torah, of course, is our bedrock.
It's a place to start.
The
Mark.
Torah is.
No, I'm saying the Hebrew.
The Hebrew.
It's a place to
I don't
start.
know, but let's say this. I'm happy to leave a semicolon there.
Yeah.
And continue.
Okay.
It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
I just now want to talk about the tour you're doing.
Okay, great.
Okay, so here you are doing it for the Abraham Fund, the Abraham Fund
Here
Initiative.
in New York, yes.
You're doing it here in New York, and again, their focus, which is how we sort of got on this, was they're trying to build another world vision, and the vision is of togetherness. Yes.
Yes.
And that's something that you're committed to, and you've done it extraordinarily
So
well.
when you come and when you go, the words are peace, goodbye, hello. In a language that I know, it goes like this: Shalom, 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 shalom.
Thank you. You've been so sweet.
No,
and so supportive.
I have
really enjoyed this conversation.
I am very glad, and I hope this is the first of many, and I look forward to seeing you both on camera and off camera. You're an extraordinary person.
Thank you so much.
How
I can say the
lucky
same for you.
we are to have you. Thank you.
Toda rabba.
Thank you very much. And that was our meeting with Noah. She and Mira will be performing, and if you get to see her, you will be doing yourself an enormous favor. There are, every now and then you come across an artist who is more than a performer, and what you've seen here today is you're seeing a lovely human being with a very special soul who also has been gifted by God with extraordinary musical talent and a fantastic conductor, arranger, Gildor, who is with her, and you'll see him there as well. And as always, I'd love to hear any of your own thoughts, any of the ideas that Noah just expressed. Please be in touch with me. Email me, write me, post on our Facebook wall, tweet me. And if you want to be in touch with Noah, all you have to do is email me, and I will forward your emails on to her.
Yeah.
Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends.
To enjoy this plentiful diversity, you only need to free your mind of all those preconceptions and use your mouth for laughing and for asking and to kiss. Communicate, don't say, oh Lord, I've come too late. You're always welcome at love's gate to wash your feet of fear and hate.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM. To GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.
L'chaim is a presentation of Jewish Education in Media.